Welcome to Avalanche House, guys. We're so excited to be here this week. About 4 weeks ago, we were sitting. My name is Devin, by the way. I lead marketing for Avalanche or for Avalabs, and we're the group that takes care of Avalanche. And about 4 weeks ago, we were sitting here thinking about what we could do in Lisbon that was going to be of service to the community. And so some very smart people on our team came up with this idea of Avalanche House, and we thought, let's just create a place where people can come and spend time. You know, folks that are over at the building conferences, if you need a change of scenery or a change of pace, a place where you can come and meet folks from the industry, you can relax, have a comfortable time, and maybe even learn something and have a bit of fun along the way. Speaking of which, if you haven't tried the simulators, I would highly recommend it. So with that said, I just want to welcome you guys all here and say thanks for taking the time to come out. We've got a super exciting announcement that we're going to be making in just about 2 minutes here, which I know you guys could probably guess what it is, for obvious reasons. But before we do that, I wanted to show you a little something just to get you in the mood.
The most competitive motorsport series on the planet is back.
Come on! Oh my God, yes!
ABB FIA Formula E race, Jake Dennis, his first win.
Pretty cool. So, I think we want to get to some of the interesting stuff, but if you think about what we're doing here and what we're trying to do and why we care about blockchain, we're really interested, Avalanche Foundation is really interested in growing that user base and bringing the utility of blockchain to people around the world and to supporting the development community and building that ecosystem on our chain as well. And so, to that end, we have looked for things that mean something to our community, and we feel like if we're going to care about the people who are in our community, we should also care about the things that they care about, which sort of led us on the circuitous journey to find areas of interest where there was a strong overlap and there was a strong synergy between speed, technology, and sustainability. And so we went out and looked for partners that could help us tell that story in an organic way where we had really strong shared brand values. And so I'm very happy to tell you that we've entered now into a deep two-way partnership with another brand that respects the value of speed, technology, and sustainability. And I'm glad to tell you that we're now partners with the Andretti Autosport team and that we'll be racing next year in the Formula E Championship as the Avalanche Andretti Formula E team. It's pretty exciting to say that, even just to hear it come out of our mouths publicly. We've been sitting on this news for a while. I know the community's been excited about it. People have been guessing about what it could be. Obviously, motorsports is really relevant to this audience. It's really relevant in blockchain. It seems like a lot of companies get involved in that. But we wanted to make sure that we were doing something that was consistent with sustainability. And that's why we picked Formula E. So without further ado, I want to introduce you to some of the folks that are here to talk about that partnership today. And I'll start with Jamie Regal, taking the time to fly here. Jamie is the CEO of Formula E, and he's come to spend some time with you guys to talk about the sport, how it's growing, and to show some support for our new relationship with Andretti Autosport. So thanks for coming. Next up in the lineup, the man that makes it all happen, Roger Griffiths is the team principal for the Avalanche Andretti Formula E team for the next season. Welcome, Roger. Number 27 in your programs, number 1 in your hearts. This is Jake Dennis. He's going to be driving. He's going to be driving for us next year in the 27 car, and we couldn't be happier to have you on the team, Jake. So thanks so much for taking the time out. And finally, saving the best for last, my friend and colleague, our head of BD, and the guy that you want to know if you're a builder and you want to get on Avalanche, you want to learn about our ecosystem, and you want to make deals. Talk to this man at the end right here, because that's the fella for you. Thanks. So, all right, I'm going to sit down. We're going to chat for a minute, and then, I know why you guys came here, not to look at us and to hear what we have to say, but really to see what's going on behind us. So if you'll be patient for just a couple minutes, I promise you it's going to be worth the wait. She's really pretty sexy. And by the way, I'll tell you a little secret. This is the first time that I'm going to get to see her in the flesh in her new outfit. So I can't wait for that. Maybe let's just start with Formula E. I don't know how familiar everybody in this room is with Formula E, but Jamie, talk to us a little bit about, how this series has gone from 0 to 1. It's been around for several years now. I think we're just wrapped up season 7, right? Season 8's coming. Talk to us a little bit about the evolution of the sport, how we got here, and what we have to look forward to in season 8.
First of all, hi everyone. Thanks very much, Devin. It's super awesome to be here, and really excited to be here in Lisbon. I've been here like once or twice before, and it's like I was in London, it was pouring rain this morning, and you guys have it very well set up here, so thanks for the invitation. It's good to be here.
Yeah.
And yeah, for Formula E, we've been around for 7 years, so we're young, and when our founders started the series, I don't think the world was looking for another motorsport, right? There's a lot of really successful motorsports out there, and equally the world wasn't looking for another sustainability story or another advocacy group, right? The vision was to bring those two together and to use the power of sport to tell an important story around climate change and around the importance of keeping the world, making the world a better place. And so we started with an electric car racing series in 2014 was the first race in Beijing. And at the time, Roger and the team were there. We had to swap cars because the batteries actually couldn't last long enough. There wasn't enough battery capacity for the cars to be able to last a full race. We had to have 2 cars per race.
Which drivers were changing midway,
so literally
right?
There was like a car swap, which on the face of it doesn't really sound that sustainable because you got to build 2 cars to be able to complete the race. But that's where the technology was. But the vision was really clear, and we said, hey, the future is going to be electric. We think we can use the power of sport to tell that story. And so the evolution in the 7 years, now the capacity is much, much greater. You're going to see this thing races for 45 minutes. It can go further, but we have a 45-minute race format. We race in the heart of some of the biggest cities in the world. So we race in Paris, we race in Monaco, we race in Brooklyn and New York, we race in London in an indoor-outdoor race.
All crypto cities too, by the way.
Exactly. And we're trying to do, we've got Cape Town coming, we've got Vancouver next year, Jakarta. So it really is a global proposition, I think very similar to blockchain. And I'm no expert, but we're borderless, right? The challenge around climate change is a global challenge. And people feel it most in urban environments, and that's why we try to go and race where other championships can't, and reach a much younger audience who cares about these topics. And it's been a pretty fun journey, and look, it's been a tough place to be the last 2 years, though, in terms of, when I tell people, okay, I'm in the car industry, but I'm in the live events business. In 2020, 21, when humans couldn't get together, that was kind of a hard thing. So we did a lot of races with no people, which was a little strange. So we're really excited. You guys are coming in at the right time, and we're going to have big crowds starting in January.
Well, you're in the right place. I think just in crypto in general, I think it's an audience that is really thirsty for in-person events. Many of us, a lot of the companies we work with and for were born during the pandemic, right? So it's just been actually great through the end of the summer and the fall to see people coming together, getting to meet people that maybe you've been working with for a long time, face to face for the first time. So appreciate that. We're going to come back and we're going to talk more about this thread of sustainability and why that's an important aspect of the partnership that we're entering into here. I didn't mention much of it when I made the announcement. I think I was a little too excited, but it's important to note that this partnership is not just two-way. We didn't want to enter into a pay-for-play kind of arrangement, right? We wanted to make sure that it was an authentic partnership where our partners also were interested in what we're doing. We were helping them to achieve their ambitions, and that's a big part of what we're doing here. So we'll get into it a little bit later in the in-depth conversation, but suffice to say that this is a partnership that's focused on not just celebrating racing and participating in all these great countries and cities around the world, but also using those as an opportunity to bring IRL connectivity for the crypto community and to do things like dev boot camps and blockchain U for people that maybe are crypto curious but haven't made the leap into blockchain. So, that's the essence of this partnership. We'll talk more about it. Raj, let me go to you for a second. We spoke about sustainability here. Technology, obviously, and using technology to perform better is a theme that we both care about. So tell me a little bit about what you guys are doing in Formula E to use technology to go faster. And last night over dinner, you mentioned something really interesting about that relationship between hardware and software. Can you talk about that a little bit?
So thank you everybody for being here with us. It's an exciting day for both parties, for the Andretti Formula E team and for our new partners in Avalanche. So, racing, everybody sort of watches it on television, and there's sort of two components to racing. Racing is entertainment. It's great to watch, it's exciting, it's thrilling, there's a lot of emotion involved. But there's a lot of hard work that goes behind creating what's behind us. And, there's the hard work in the design of the physical components in the car. This is an electric racing car, so it has a battery, it has an electric motor, it has a power inverter. But what pulls all that together is the software platform that controls everything. And, the hardware is fixed for 2 seasons, but the software is open for development continuously. And, we coming from a racing background, we're all engineers, we've approached the software development in perhaps traditional manners, traditional coding techniques. I think what we see here is one of the huge potential avenues of exploration working with Avalanche is taking a step back from our traditional methods and looking to the blockchain technology to see what we can do differently. We spend a lot of time living in the virtual world because we only get to see the racing car at the race weekends. We don't actually get to play with it away from the racetrack. We can't go testing every week. So we live in the virtual world. We live in lap simulations. We live in more advanced versions of the simulators that you have over there. We live in hardware in the loop where we're testing things continuously. When I was looking at what is the next step of the evolution of our race team, it wasn't hiring the next race engineer or hiring the next designer. It was, I need software guys. I need software developers because that's where we make the most performance. We've given up. I mean, for those of you that are familiar with cars and perhaps familiar with racing, you perhaps think we spend all our time adjusting tire pressures and changing springs and that kind of stuff and some aero settings. Really, we don't do that these days. Those are second or third order tuning devices for us. The software that lives on this car is so powerful, it can change the way the car drives, and Jake can talk more about it because he experiences it firsthand. Much more so than we as engineers can do with a tire pressure adjustment or a spring change. The car is moving towards being an intelligent vehicle. And I think for us, and we'll talk about it maybe more, what is the next step for us? Is the next step for us AI? Where is that going? How can we make the car make as many intelligent decisions as the driver's making whilst he's driving? There's already a communication protocol going on between what the car is doing and what the driver is doing. The car will make suggestions to the driver. You should try this, you should try that. And this is based on the onboard technology we have of the car. So for us, partnering with a leading developer, as in Avalanche, really we feel gives us that technological edge going forward. So this is why we're excited, because we think maybe this is the edge that could get us to more race wins, championships, and ultimately, the success of the partnership together.
Thanks, Roger. It's exciting to see how technology is just driving it forward, and I love the idea of how it's so software dependent, and you all got these hardware restrictions, so you really have to innovate on the software side of things, and that's where everything's going. I think we were joking about it last night. There's only 2 kinds of companies: software companies and companies that will be software companies, and maybe the same is true for racing teams. So speaking of racing, the guy that really understands what it's all about, right, Jake? Tell us how much of driving this car is actually driving this car. What percentage out of 100%, how much of it is actually just driving versus operating some kind of advanced system?
I think Roger touched on it. Obviously the car is becoming more and more advanced, and it's given us suggestions the whole time. I would like to say that it's all the driver, just because then I get to keep my job for longer. But it's definitely moving more and more towards, like the virtual world, and what these cars are capable of now is seriously impressive. The software behind everything of what the car can do is something which I had to learn this year. Obviously, I was a rookie coming into season 7, and just my advanced knowledge from the first 2-3 races to what I now know is impressive, and it's just moving the whole time. Through the winter, we'll have obviously a busy winter on the simulators over there, just trying to develop the software as much as we can. And it's obviously, at the end of the day, it's still a race car with 4 wheels, and it is predominantly down to the driver to try and make the difference. But if you have all these tools and the best team behind you, the most advanced technology and software, it definitely helps and leads towards more wins and championships. But it's very exciting. Formula E as a whole is moving forward massively. It's grown so much over the past 7 seasons. And yeah, for the future, it's only going to get bigger. So it's very exciting. It's great to have Avalanche join us on this journey. And yeah, I'm very looking forward to what we can achieve in 2022 and further on.
And maybe just say one thing here. I mean, you may not be aware, but this is a 2-time race winner from last season. So this guy knows what he's talking about. This guy can drive really quickly. He came in as a rookie and to finish, ultimately, finished third in the championship, first year of a world championship. So we feel that we've got one of the best drivers in the paddock working with us. So, you know, what this man says is definitely worth listening to.
I was going to point that out. I mean, you know, Jake, you refer to yourself as a rookie, but it comes across as though, you know, you haven't driven a lot. Obviously you have. You've raced in a lot of different leagues. And later we're going to get into some detail. I want you to explain to us how this thing is different exactly. Maybe we'll take a look at the steering wheel and you'll see just how much technology these guys are dealing with. So, yeah, Roger alluded to it. You know, finishing third on the roster for the season. It's nothing to be ashamed of, and we know there was a couple of incidents through the season where maybe it could have been better for you, right? So he has to more podiums next year. So excited about that. John, you deal with a lot of partnerships. Like, what makes for a good partnership? Talk to us about the elements of a good partnership, and then maybe you can explain why we picked Andretti.
I mean, when you think about who you want to work with, right? Traditional business is set up as a deal, right? And someone wins a negotiation or someone feels like they win or not. The beauty of our industry is that we're building it all together, right? We're in it together. We're in it to grow this pie, this ecosystem, this technology. So ultimately, from a BD perspective, our partnerships are built under one premise, and that's a win-win, right? We want every partner to feel that they are winning as much as we are and that there's mutual gain. Because ultimately, one side winning and another feeling like they're not doesn't help. So whether you're a builder or developer or a team or a partner, we're in this together, right? So if you're providing a service to Avalanche, you know, you're going to benefit and we're going to benefit. And vice versa. If you're using our technology, we want you to benefit as well. And ultimately what that comes down to is the builders, right? Everyone in this room, everyone at this conference, everyone up here is ultimately a builder. And that comes down to the Andretti partnership, right? When you think of speed, you think of Andretti. Or if you hear Andretti, you think of speed. And a storied history with speed and technology and a legacy that goes with it. And that history and that legacy now lead to this new technology, right? This new racing paradigm with Formula E, which on the Avalanche side, we share it with, right? We're going into a newer sport, something that we as a platform are new and are growing and are adapting. And we are gonna grow and wanna grow with something that's, with a sport and a league and a community that's growing just like ours. So at the end of the day, we share so many common themes, right? Whether it's speed or technology, and most importantly as well, sustainability, right? So Avalanche is very sustainable. The entirety of the blockchain industry is going towards a more sustainable future. As that kind of technology of the future, it's incumbent upon all of us and this industry to become more sustainable. So there is no better partner in our opinion and in our eyes than Andretti to link up, to do this together, to grow the sport and the platform. So.
Thanks, John. I think it's also worth mentioning that, you know, there's a lot of crypto companies that are getting into motorsport. I think when we looked at it, we wanted to make sure that partnership was authentic and was organic, right? And you know, you guys all know how quickly things move in our industry. So I come from a more traditional brand and marketing background, and when we started to look for partners that could move as quickly as we can, or as we have to stay relevant in the space, there aren't a lot of companies or organizations out there that can move at the pace that everyone in this room is used to. You know, we live at warp speed. People don't understand how quickly we get things done. I told you, 4 weeks ago, this was a twinkle in our eye. And this happened not because of me, actually, because of other people, but we did it because that's how we do it in crypto. We don't mess around. You know, when we looked for a partner that could move quickly, we knew we didn't have time. And so we found Andretti. There's no red tape. There's no ceremony. There's no, this is how you do it and it takes this long. It's just get it done. It's the way we live, and it's a partnership that makes sense for that reason. If I tell you that the first time we had a conversation about this partnership was less than 60 days ago, and here we are in Lisbon making this announcement, That's a world's first for this industry. And it's a demonstration of how quickly two partners can move together if they're aligned and they're committed to what they're doing. So without any further ado, maybe we should all get up off our chairs and move out of the way and show these guys what they really came to see.
Let's do this.
Are you guys ready for this, or would you prefer to do it later in the proceedings? Are you
go.
sure? You ready? No? Yes? Okay. We need two in the middle. We need two at the back. Okay, you ready?
Wait, we're going to count it down? or
Oh,
what?
okay, let's get a countdown. Can you guys help? 5, 4. Wait. We're going to do that again. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Here we go. Okay, so Jamie,
Yeah, that's nice.
we started off by speaking about sustainability and why that's important for Formula E. Maybe you could just elaborate on that a little bit and talk about the different things that the series has done to reduce your carbon footprint. And it's not just about, okay, we have electric vehicles, so this is sustainable. But sustainability is obviously much more than just having an electric car, right? So can we talk about that?
Yeah, so when I started 2 years ago, I thought we are the good guys. It was enough that it was about the electric cars.
Yeah.
But it turns out that consumers' expectations, our fans' expectations, keep getting raised. And the reality is, because we're high profile and we make this claim around sustainability, people hold us to a different standard, right? And those standards are ever elevating. And so when you look at the actual carbon footprint of Formula E, the emissions of the cars are actually tiny in motorsport relative to the total carbon footprint, right? So we travel around the world, we race in cities, as I said before. There's shipping costs, logistics, all the fans traveling to the events. So what we said is, okay, how can we be a leader across the piece? Obviously, the big goal is to get everyone to start driving electric vehicles, right? And that impact in terms of the total carbon output of the globe, transport's about 30%, right? So that's a big objective in itself. But how do we make sure we're really setting the standard? And so what we said is, okay, let's measure based on science-based targets, which the UN sets. So we measure every single carbon output that we've had since inception. How do we make sure we're reducing that carbon footprint by using different fuels for the shipping, for example, simple stuff like no plastics at the races, et cetera, et cetera. And then actually we partnered with an agency to announce basically that we're the only sport that is net zero carbon since inception. So offsetting any output, not just going forward and making claims about where we're going to be in 2030, 2040, 2050, which you hear a lot of these days, actually going back from the beginning. And we thought that was a pretty powerful message. So that we're measuring, we're reducing, and then we're offsetting the balance. But the goal, of course, is to reduce the actual output so we don't have to offset as much over time.
Right.
So that's the
reduce
trend.
your overall footprint as a series.
Correct.
Yeah.
But there's a balance, right? I mean, the reality is our message is global. We need to be able to go into new markets to grow. We are a business, right? We're not racing in Japan. We're not racing in mainland China right now. We're not racing in Brazil. These are big markets, big automotive markets. We'd like to be able to go there. We wouldn't not do that because of the carbon output, right? So that's why we have to use these other tools to be able to demonstrate, the sustainability narrative.
Well, I think we see that in our industry a little bit too, right? Because sustainability, you have to coexist, and obviously you got to believe that everybody's moving towards a more sustainable future. We're very positive about that, and we believe in the ecosystem as a whole, and those that are complementary to us as well. But John, maybe I can kick it over to you. Can we talk a little bit about sustainability? Obviously, like a lot of other layer ones out there, we pride ourselves on being fast and high tech and decentralized and scalable and all that good stuff. But one of the other things that we're very proud of that makes the Avalanche chain stand out a bit is the idea of sustainability. So can you talk a little bit about Avalanche's perspective on sustainability? And guys, if I could just ask, if you want to chat, please feel free to use some of the public areas just so we can focus, but thank you very much. Get these gentlemen a drink. Thank you. Sorry, John, you were saying?
Yeah, so look, at the end of the day, we stand on the shoulders of those that have come before us, right? So like any good technology, there's an evolution, right? Of course, with Bitcoin and with Ethereum, a proof of work, and we commend Ethereum, of course, and you know, following that legacy of them going to proof of stake and ETH2. But you know, there's been an evolution, right? And you saw newer chains come across and try and use some of the older tactics, and now you see with Avalanche and as well as some of the other new chains a shift towards, you know, proof of stake and a shift towards a more sustainable future, right? Ultimately, all of us are part of a new ecosystem and a new technology, and that new technology needs to adapt to the times, be sustainable, right? It needs to fit the times that it's in. It needs to not just be fast and scalable and everything else, but it needs to be sustainable. So, you know, whether it's Avalanche or if it's this car, you know, there's a message that we can build better, faster things and have them be sustainable. Because at the end of the day, as a technology, we need, all of us as builders and partners here need to move forward together, and we can do so in a sustainable manner. And Avalanche has done that, right? The platform has a focus on sustainability, and it's always been tried. We've always tried to push the boundaries, and developers have pushed the boundaries to optimize it, make it as sustainable as possible. And we're actually really excited about some work that we're doing in the space that we'll be able to share with you guys in the next couple of weeks regarding the level of sustainability of Avalanche as a chain. But we'll wait for that time in the future. But you know, that's top of mind for us, right? Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how fast you are, how cheap you are, how great you are. If you're not sustainable, if you're not keeping up with the times, if you're not future-proofing or building for a more sustainable future, you know, you're kind of you still have a foot in the past, and we're all looking forward. So
it's a super important point, and I think if you guys know much about, for those that are familiar with the way that Avalanche was architected, it was architected to be future-proof, to give you enough flexibility that regardless of how the technology evolves, we have an architecture that can support that through subnets. I mean, as you're probably familiar, obviously we have the C chain, which is EVM compatible, but we could very easily have a subnet that's running WASM, or you might have a different network that's a private blockchain to support an enterprise. So it's just an incredibly flexible architecture, and has been designed very thoughtfully by builders for builders, so that there's no dead ends on our platform. But the other thing that John mentioned, which I think is super important, is the idea that we need to, as an industry, evolve this idea of what performant means. It's not just about fast and scalable. It's about fast, scalable, and sustainable. So for us, when we measure performance, we include sustainability. There was a lot of speculation online based on our teaser vid yesterday. People thought we were going to be an F1 or F2. Or look, we love motorsports. I love motorsports, but the future is sustainable, right? Which led us to Formula E. And I think by now probably the association is fairly obvious. So coming back to Formula E, Jake, you touched on it. How smart is this car? Walk us through the kind of things that we can expect. I mean, I don't know if the steering wheel, I think it comes off, right? I don't know if it's easy to take off, but talk us through this and tell us what you have to do as a driver. Help us understand, once you hit the grid, how does qualifying differ? I don't know if you guys know this, but in FE, they have these, you know, like Super Mario power boosters things where you drive over it and it speeds the car up. And, you know, maybe talk a little bit about that as an inroad to the technology and just how technical it is.
Yeah, so like you mentioned, obviously the technology is evolving all of the time, and the steering wheel does actually come off, and it's quite impressive how many.
Don't break it.
Oh, maybe it doesn't come off. Does it come off?
Don't break the car.
I don't think it comes off actually, guys. No.
Can we get somebody that knows what they're doing, please?
Yeah, normally, no, that's not coming off. But when you look closer to the car, when we move out of the way, you'll see how many switches and how many multi-functions we have. And I think it's over 100 switches on the steering wheel, which the driver can adjust. But really now, I think one of the biggest things is that the car can actually tell us, what to do. And this is just, you know, through the software and through the technology that the car is capable of doing this. So if we're halfway through a race and we're struggling with, we're lacking on energy, and the car is actually clever enough to figure out that we're not going to get to the end of the race. So the car will then inform me, like, look, you need to do a better job of saving more energy. This is what I suggest. So then it will tell me what to change on the steering wheel. And I can either ignore it but 99% of the time it's correct, and I'll generally accept what it's telling me to do. And this is just, there's no other category like this. You know, you won't get this in, you won't even get this in Formula One. And this is just shows the level that it's progressed through. You know, we've gone from, like Jamie mentioned, we've gone from doing a car swap halfway through a race because the battery wasn't efficient enough to now being able to last 45 minutes quite comfortably. So it's just massively unique, something which no other race series can do. And yeah, it's just expanding more and more. And to go to the locations, what we go to is to this worldwide public is just shows that the level we're at now, and for Formula E to now be classified as a world championship is it's just taking it to the next step.
Amazing. Thanks for explaining that. I'm sure there's so much more detail in there. All I know is that a couple of weeks ago I had the privilege of riding in a two-seater in an Indy car behind Mario Andretti, and it was terrifying but also exhilarating. And I have no idea how you guys have time to do anything, including think, when that's happening. I had a hard time sitting still at that speed. So anyway, that's probably enough about that. I think we want to maybe touch on a couple more subjects, and then we'll just open it up and see if anybody's got any questions. I know this gentleman has one, at least one, maybe a couple. So let's talk a little bit, Jamie. If I could come back to you, why are you here? Again, just remind me, what is it about this audience, this venue, besides the fact that you're here to support our relationship with Andretti, which we appreciate, but what is it about this audience and blockchain that, warranted the CEO of Formula E getting on a plane and flying here just to have this conversation? What is it about what's going on with this and how the sport is growing that makes this relevant for you?
Yeah, I think there's two elements. So first of all, we're a young sport. We've been around for 7 years. We have an audience of about 300 million people watched our races over the course of the season last year. We target a younger audience, we target an urban audience, but we're still pretty young and relatively small. If you think of football, we're here in Portugal, obviously the most popular sport here, American football in the States. The audiences are much bigger. Formula One, Indy, you mentioned earlier. So we have to figure out how to grow, right? We need to be able to reach new audiences, and this community here is very much our target, right? It's technology savvy, it's international in mindset, it's awareness around sustainability, and so how do we make sure that we're engaging with an audience that makes sense for us as we look to grow, right? We're not trying to appeal to my father as a sort of proxy, right? He's 75 years old, he loves motorsport. We're looking for a much younger generation of fan to be able to grow. Exactly. Yeah. And then number two is we need to do that with partners, right? And in the history of sport, right? I mean, you have sport like, if you use soccer, for example, right? It has 150 years of history, and now brands are attaching to that audience because it's a very large audience. As a young sport, we have to partner with brands like Avalanche and working with Andretti to be able to figure out how can we scale our audience much quicker. Right, and yes, we put on races. We have a platform, if you want to call it that. We partner with media distribution partners. I think one of our partners here in Portugal, 11, is here in the room. So we rely on partners to help us scale our audience and scale our fan base much quicker than would otherwise be possible. So those are really in simple terms.
Sounds like we're here for the same reasons, basically, right? To connect with an audience that's relevant and find a way to give them something useful and get something useful back in return, I guess.
Yeah, and then I'm like, crypto. What did you call him? Crypto curious. Yeah. So Jake had a moment this year when you won your first race, and I think there's like this little moment at the end of the race. He was like really excited, and he said, "I'm gonna have a beer tonight." He said something like that. And so that moment, right, that's an iconic moment in Formula E's short history. We don't even have an NFT platform. We haven't used the technologies that you guys are enabling to be able to capture that moment, right? I have it. I've played it a few times. I've played it for my son. He thinks it's quite cool. He thinks Jake, by the way, is like, the not just the rookie, but like the cool guy. He's got the Givenchy shoes, and he's got I didn't even pronounce that right. How do we work with guys like you to create new experiences for our fans? How do we create digital assets that translate over time, that are portable? So there's a lot of learning that we can do as well. And look, we view ourselves as innovative. I mean, you mentioned earlier what's called attack mode, right? So it is sort of Super Mario Kart, right? They go off the racing line, they trigger some sensors, and then they get access to incremental kilowatts or more horsepower in simple terms. So we view ourselves as that fusion of the real and the digital world. So it's really good to be here and look forward to some cool interactions.
Appreciate that. All right, so speaking of cool advancements in technology, maybe our last question before we open it up for you, Roger. What are some of the changes coming in Season 8, which is Season 8 starts in January, for those that are not familiar. The racing begins in Saudi Arabia and then goes to Mexico City, Cape Town, Rome, Berlin, London, New York in July. So put that in your calendars. I think it's like mid-July. Come to New York, visit with us in Brooklyn. The Formula E race is going to be there as well. So if you like Avalanche House, you're going to love what we do there. I'm not sure what it's going to be, but it's going to be cool. But what can we expect in Season 8, Raj, when it comes to changes in the technology? Maybe the car is getting faster, slower? I don't know. What can we expect?
So we're in a bit of a transition year in Season 8. So this is what we refer to as a Gen 2 Formula E car. At the end of Season 8, we actually have a new car, or Formula E has a new car coming, which is Generation 3. But there are a number of changes that are happening to the way the racing format is going to take place, which is going to have a huge impact on how we operate a race. And probably the easiest way to explain it is the concept of extra time that you have in football. So if there's been a number of yellow card situations, substitutions, whatever, the referee will decide to add 3 or 5 minutes on. And in the consequences in football, if you add 3 or 5 minutes, is you just got, your legs are a bit more tired because you've been running around for an extra 3 or 5 minutes. Formula E is bringing this concept to the race format. So our races are 45 minutes long today. So when we go into a race, we simulate, based on the lap time, how much energy we would consume on a per lap basis. And this is really what the car and Jake are trying to achieve. It says you have to hit this number. If you go too fast, you'll overconsume. If you go too slow, you'll underconsume, but you'll be too slow on the racetrack. But the race is always 45 minutes long, plus 1 lap. Now we could have a race that could be 48 minutes long. It could be 49 minutes long. We don't know that going into the start of the race. So we have to try and anticipate what the impact of extra time, which we don't know, it could be nothing, it could be 1 minute, it could be 4 minutes, will be on the race car, or 10 minutes, so, which could be, it's a significant percentage increase of how far that car has to go. So we have to recalculate on the fly what are the strategies. And so we're looking very hard at what are the software developments that we need to be able to do that. And we also have to think about, it's not just the amount of energy that the car has on board, because it's, in conventional motor racing, if you start running out of fuel, you can always do a pit stop towards the end of the race and refuel, put another few litres of fuel in. With an electric racing car, you don't have that option. You can't come in and charge because that's just not part of the way the championship works. You could find yourself stationary on the side of the road, which nobody wants to see. So we're going to have to be adapting on the fly. The other thing is that this car is powered by a battery. You know from using your cell phone, the more you use it, the hotter it gets. So this car, as you use as the battery, it gets hot. It gets hot to a point that it will actually start derating, which means it's losing power deliberately to protect the battery. So we've now got a situation where the race is going longer. We've got potentially less energy on a per lap basis available to us at the end of the race than we had at the beginning. We've also got a battery which is starting to approach its thermal limits as well. So we're now having to factor all of those changing scenarios in as they're happening real time. And this is not, we can simulate it 100 times, but there'll always be a scenario that we've never encountered before. And this is where we have to evolve our thinking, our thought process, the software behind all of this to cope with these changing scenarios. And we've got a lot of smart engineers, and obviously at Avalanche there's a super smart software team. And last night over dinner we were talking about, well, maybe we would need to get the two software groups together. People from different industries, different technologies, different ways of life, but with a common goal of trying to think differently, think outside of the box. And see, put them all in a room together, lock the doors, don't let them out for 48 hours, see what they can come up with. Because I think that's how we work.
That's how we work normally.
Yeah, that's what I figured. Yeah, it's a bit like us as well. So, but
throw them some red meat every now and then.
So this for us is a super exciting opportunity to try and take the mindset of two different groups and see if we can solve a problem together.
Yeah,
just like you guys do all the time.
incredible, the amount of technology, the amount of computation that's happening in real time. And just to remind you, in case nobody here has driven a race car, neither have I, but this is what they tell me, you know, at 200 miles an hour or 320 kilometers an hour, depending on where you live, you're covering literally a soccer field or a football field every second. 1 second to do an entire football field. It's hard to make decisions. I don't know how you guys do it, but all of this is happening at those kind of speeds. So incredible. We're running out of time. We want you guys to get back to networking and having fun, but I definitely want to take a question. This gentleman had a question.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, like, what do you feel is like the immediate use case for a racing team in synergy with blockchain? I'll just give some examples, like maybe verified race results, or maybe you can share trustless data around simulations that you're doing. I'm sure a lot of people here would like to hear that you're going to be doing a DAO for a racing team. Like, those are just some ideas. Like, I know you said that you have some announcements you're going to make in a couple weeks, so I'm not trying to prompt you to say anything.
That's a good question. So I think for those who couldn't hear, sorry, what's your name? Mike. Mike was asking, you know, what are some of the obvious, and probably keying off of Roger's comment about, you know, what are some of the things we could take from blockchain that could help the racing team? Maybe I'll just kick that off with a couple of ideas. I think, you know, Ashley, who's sitting over there with the one-way glasses on, is VP of Marketing for Andretti. So find her afterwards and ask her this question. But I think in our conversation so far, a lot of it has revolved around, because I asked that question, why are you guys interested? What do you think that our technology can do for you? And I think just like every other brand, but maybe even more so, where you've got such a strong supporter base, to be able to connect directly with the fans is really important. Even to some degree, Avalanche as a sponsor, that's why we didn't call this a sponsorship, because it's not. This was never going to be a pay-for-play deal. We think that's useless. We want this to be a two-way partnership. So how can a relationship with Avalanche help Andretti connect with their fan base in more direct ways? Not just through fun and innovative ways of consuming branded content like NFTs, which obviously are helpful, but you know, I think personally what I'm more excited about is how a social token is going to change that equation between the fan community and the racing team. In some respects, we're an intermediary, and any sponsor, traditional sponsor, is just an intermediary that blockchain could also disrupt. Why can't we have fan-supported cars? Why can't we have tokens, you know, that don't violate or trigger the Howey test? How do we have communities that are connected directly to brands through blockchain technologies in a decentralized way, where you get rid of the middleman? The only reason sponsors exist is because they need to collect money from people and give them to teams so those teams can race. But maybe in the future we don't need sponsors. Maybe we just need true partners. That's something that we believe, and that's part of the reason that we're here. I don't know that we have time to get into more technicals on that, but maybe in the follow-up conversation. Sorry, your name? River, and you're from?
London.
River from London.
Where can we buy one of the Avalanche Andretti shirts? Because they look really nice.
See
Yeah.
Ashley just here.
Yeah,
January.
so
Okay, fine.
without over-promising on that front, the gear that you're seeing here is reserved for the VIPs on the team. So I don't know if that will be for sale, but maybe. But we have a lot of branded merchandise, and the rest of the team kit, what you're going to be seeing racing on the circuit. I don't want to give you a date, because crypto is brutal when you do that, if anybody knows what's happened over the last few months. But I will tell you that very soon, and in our plans is to have a merch store where you'll be able to come and visit our merch store and buy that. We'll also be giving a lot of stuff away because we love the community, and swag just is in high demand. So yeah, coming soon. And by the way, if you like the car and you like these shirts, just wait till you see the rest of the team kit. It's really pretty sick. So yeah. Okay, maybe with that, any more questions?
Just one last thing. You know, when I was mentioning something coming in a couple weeks, that'll be regarding sustainability and that. But I mean, to your point, there's so many things that we could do, right? Whether it is a DAO, whether it's a fan token, whether it's ways for fans to directly interact with the driver or with any other athlete in any other sport, right? To pick what the kit's going to look like, to decide certain things, to have that direct connection. But in terms of like merch and everything else, you know, we want feedback too from you guys, right? So that's something that can continually evolve, and we'll be able to do
Thanks,
that.
Jay. Okay.